A life characterized by adversity, from a childhood interrupted by repeated moves to the psychological toll of early career problems, is hidden behind the steely stare and uncompromising on-screen presence. Eastwood's journey was anything but simple. He suffered from anxiety attacks, a tragic plane crash, and the tragic death of his father, but he managed to leave a legacy as one of the most well-known people in cinema. Did Clint Eastwood's turbulent past influence the legend he became? On May 31, 1930, little Clint Eastwood was born at St. Francis Hospital in San Francisco, shocking the nurses with a heavy 11-pound weight and earning the nickname Samson. His parents, Clinton Sr. and Ruth Nay Runner, had a family tree with English, Scottish, Dutch, German, and Irish ancestry. In the 1930s, Clint's father struggled to maintain a stable job. He tried his hand as a salesman and even dabbled as a detective in San Francisco. It was a decade of constant moves for the Eastwoods, but by 1940, they found stability in affluent Portland. Clint even had a Mayflower passenger somewhere in his ancestry. Later, a younger sister, Jean Bernhard, joined the family. California has forgotten the tales of the Depression. At Piedmont High School, Clint's rebellious streak really flared up with that offensive message scrawled on the scoreboard, the flaming effigy on the school lawn, and poor grades that forced him to play catch-up with summer classes. Unfortunately, school wasn't his strong suit. Clint occasionally drops the Eastwoods, where they live comfortably with a swimming pool, country club membership, and all the perks. Oakland Technical High provided a new beginning. Though he could have been a good basketball player, Clint preferred solo pursuits, worked on car engines, learned about aircraft maintenance, and became so good at the piano that a friend remembers his fingers literally bleeding from practice. However, graduation was a big question mark. His teachers saw a spark of talent and encouraged him to participate in school plays, but he just wasn't interested. Records are hazy, and pals like Fritz Miz think he just left to go have fun somewhere else after his father moved to Seattle in early 1949. Clint found a temporary home in Oakland with his friend Harry Pendleton, and then he was fortunate enough to be invited to a party in Malibu where he met film director Howard Hawks. This was a significant turning point in his life, but before Hollywood, he had real work experience logging in Springfield, Oregon, working as a lifeguard for a while after receiving his Red Cross certification, and even playing ragtime piano in an Oakland bar. Talk about a wild start. Did raw talent and fortunate breaks pave his path, or was destiny guiding him all along? Keep watching. Things are about to get much more interesting. Clint Eastwood was enlisted into the Army in 1951 for the Korean War, but instead of serving on the front lines, he ended up at Ford in California. His job as a swimming teacher was safe, but life has a way of upending plans. Hitching a ride back to base from Seattle on September 30, 1951, turns out to be a jinxed flight. The weather is poor from the beginning, and then things get extremely bad, with the plane's back door flying open. The radios and oxygen system go out as Clint sets up a temporary solution. What a dreadful situation. When the fuel runs out, and the pilot is lost in the fog miles from the California coast, he has no choice but to abandon the aircraft because sharks are a real threat. However, Clint and the pilot inflate rafts and begin desperately paddling towards the shore, where the ocean battles them and the waves overturn Clint's raft, forcing him to swim a tortuous 2 or 4 miles, depending on who is telling the story. This is where his Army job becomes life or death, and keep in mind that his work as a swimming instructor may be the thing that gives him the advantage to survive this tired and confused situation. Clint struggles with hallucinations in the bioluminescent sea, but he manages to survive until he stumbles into an RCA radio station, stunned and freezing, and meets up with the pilot, who miraculously also lives for years. Clint stars in Escape. From Alcatraz, he portrays Frank Morris, an inmate who daringly swims across the frigid San Francisco Bay to escape the notorious island prison. Art imitating life seems to have given Clint the grit that makes his on-screen escape so convincing, but hey, military life is all work. In addition to his meager $67 monthly salary, Clint has a side job at a sugar company and a rumored romance with an officer's daughter. Good connections never hurt, and even then, a trip to Carmel ignited something inside of him that made him say, "Someday, I'd like to live here." His military friends include future TV stars Richard Long and Martin Milner. Clint Eastwood traded his spurs for a bad bee in the 1970s and early 1980s, and the sandy plains gave way to city streets. It was during this time that Dirty Harry, the famous San Francisco police officer who wasn't scared to break the law to capture his target, was born. The rogue with a badge motif persisted in movies like Thunderbolt, Lightfoot, and The Gauntlet, where morality and lawlessness were dissolved. Eastwood also displayed his humorous side in the Every Which Way films, which starred his orangutan friend Clyde. This era came to an end with the terrifying Escape from Alcatraz, in which Clint demonstrated that his acting abilities extended beyond the heroes he could portray. In 1975, while filming the thriller The Iger-sanctioned tragedy, a desperate prisoner named David Knowles worked as a stunt double for a few more shots of a climbing sequence. He teamed up with fellow climber Mike Hoover to finish the task, and they were able to get the footage. However, tragedy struck when an unexpected rock slide sent a bouncer hurtling towards the men as they stood on a ledge. In a heartbreaking detail, David Knoll tragically lost his life, while Mike Hoover suffered a serious fracture. One of the surviving climbers detailed the shock, stating that we flew up to that exact area and there was the scenario that we had been faking for 2 days. The horrifying scene was a mirror image of one the crew had recorded just days earlier. The news devastated Clint Eastwood, who felt responsible for the death and was so overcome by grief that he almost gave up on the entire project. However, his crew, who understood the inherent risks of filmmaking, encouraged him to continue, believing it was the best way to honor David Knoll's memory and dedication. It was unbelievable to see Dave Knoll hanging dead on the end of the rope. Eastwood's roles changed in the 1980s and early 1990s. They were no longer merely tough. Instead, they were burdened. In Firefox, he portrayed a pilot plagued by PTSD. While in Tight RPP, he was a police officer tortured by the murderer he hunts down. In addition to facing external antagonists, Eastwood's characters also had to contend with their own inner demons. This theme persisted in White Hunter Black Heart, where a filmmaker became obsessed with an elephant hunt, and Rookie, where his fixation with a case put everybody around him in peril. Clint's return to his Western roots in Unforgiven represented the pinnacle of this era, but this time he was a tormented ex-outlaw dealing with his violent past. The 2000s and beyond brought us the grumpy age. In Space Cowboys, Clint Eastwood plays an elderly astronaut who finally gets his chance to travel to space. In Bloodwork, he is a retired profiler whose health issues prevent him from hunting down a killer. However, Eastwood really rose to stardom in movies like Million Dollar Baby, in which he plays a reluctant boxing trainer, and Gran Torino, in which a racist veteran finds unexpected redemption. His most recent film, Crying, continuing the concept of the sour old man, Macho portrays a weathered horseman traveling across rural Mexico. Clint Eastwood's private life is as dramatic as any movie he has directed. His first marriage to Maggie Johnson in 1953 appeared to be a sign of stability to Mark, but he was first apprehensive about getting married. Nevertheless, the domestic bliss quickly faded, restlessness set in, and extramarital affairs became a recurrent theme. The couple stayed together for a while, even welcoming their own children, Kyle and Allison, into the world, but the cracks in the facade were widening. The first result of this philandering lifestyle was a daughter, Lori Murray, born from a covert affair and placed for adoption without Eastwood's knowledge. Years later, another affair gave birth to Kimberly L. The couple's eventual split resulted from circulating rumors about Eastwood's involvement with co-star Sandra Locke by 1979. The fallout from Eastwood's romantic decisions went well beyond the news. Kimber Eastwood's connection with her father has been the subject of contradictory accounts. At times, she has talked about having a tight rapport, but at other times, she has shown frustration and feelings of neglect, even saying that she begged for a closer relationship. Eastwood's personal history is further complicated by the Lori Murray story. Lori was adopted as a baby and only found her biological father in the 1990s through a private investigado. Although Eastwood accepted her after she came out, it's unclear if he ever actively looked for her or if he was unaware of her existence prior to her revelation. The relationship between Eastwood and stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis started working on the Rawhide set, a relationship that reportedly lasted 14 years and produced a daughter named Kimber, but Eastwood says he didn't realize she was his at first. Later on, this habit of concealing his children would recur. Although Eastwood and Johnson were still together, Sandra Locke entered the scene in 1972. Locke was in a platonic marriage with a childhood acquaintance, and their chemistry began in The Outlaw. Josie Wales entered into a passionate but turbulent relationship with Locke, who claimed that he forced her to have abortions, and a two-ball litigation against his wishes. This toxic dynamic lasted 10 years and ended in ugly lawsuits alleging fraud and broken promises on Eastwood's part. While Locke was still in the picture, Eastwood met actress Frances Pfizer, with whom he fell in love at first sight despite Locke's presence. They started a happy romance that resulted in a daughter named Francesca, but Eastwood's secret children with Reeves were strained from past affairs, and paparazzi photos suggested infidelity. Eventually, this relationship also ended. News anchor Dina Ruiz first attracted Eastwood's attention in 1992. Their whirlwind romance resulted in marriage in 1996 and the birth of their daughter Morgan shortly after. However, after a reality show featuring Dina clashed with his private nature, things spiraled out of control as Dina turned to his old friend Scott Fisher for support, and Eastwood started dating his ex-wife Erica Tomlinson Fisher in 2013. The marriage officially fell apart, but as one chapter ends in 2015, Eastwood fell in love with hostess Christina Sandersa. In recent years, Clint Eastwood's health has been a subject of speculation after he was not seen in public for more than 450 days. The couple has kept their relationship private, even enjoying events with Eastwood's ex-partners and kids, suggesting an amicable maturity in his later years. His absence from the 2023 tournament, where his son Scott was competing, added to the anxiety among those close to him. However, Eastwood put these rumors to rest last month with a rare appearance at Jane Goodall's conservationist event in his hometown of Carsmell by the Sea. He was seen grinning and chatting with Goodall, and he seemed in a good mood. His last appearance had been in February 2022 at the Ed&T Prom Golf Tournament, an event he usually enjoys and held close to his home. The 93-year-old legend is seen in pictures looking healthy, sporting longer hair, a full beard, and a laid-back, yet fashionable ensemble. This marked his comeback to the spotlight, as he is now directing and producing the courtroom drama Juror No. 2. Last November, he was spotted on the Georgia set, obviously enjoying his work. As actor Scott Eastwood, Clint's son, attributes his fitness inspiration to his father, Eastwood maintains a low-fat, high-protein diet while watching his cholesterol levels, a habit he probably learned from his father, who tragically passed away at a young age from cardiovascular disease. It is evident that Clint Eastwood refuses to allow his age define him, whether he is acting, directing, or just spending a day with other environmentalists. Scott disclosed that Clint encouraged him to exercise weights as a teenager and adheres to a same strict diet that emphasizes nutrients over indulgence. We appreciate you watching, and if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and comment. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell.